It's award season, people. Did you know yesterday, if you tuned in, and rightfully you should have been tuned in yesterday to the early line, we know were the Oscar Awards yesterday. How about that? And if you watch the early line, we constantly update you here on the FanDuel Sportsbook at who can win what in any sport. The NFL, who's going to win the MVP? We talk about it all the time. And also in the NBA as well. But one of those that we don't really talk about all that much in award season is NBA Coach of the Year. It's Sonny Rightside, it's Davis Maddock. This is the NBA talk you have been waiting for here. So before we get to the odds at the FanDuel Sportsbook here, let's look at the criteria for you, Davis, of what makes a Coach of the Year. Do you need a great basketball team? Do you have to overexceed expectations? Do you have to manage expectations? What is your criteria that you look for if you had a vote for NBA Coach of the Year?
I think it would probably differ on the year. I definitely would give a lot of credit to any team that loses a great player either in the season or in the offseason and then continues to get great results. I think probably the harder thing, and this is why Mark Daigneault is all the way at the top, is having a very young team win a lot of games, because it's just very hard in the NBA to get. It's not about, I don't even think it's about buy-in or effort. It's just young players in the NBA just make a lot of mistakes. And basketball, sort of weird. Basketball is a game that really punishes mistakes because the margins are so thin. You know, turnovers, bad defensive rotations, all of these things they really add up. And the Oklahoma City Thunder are the second youngest team in the NBA. And winning with a young, I mean, look at the other youngest rosters in the NBA. They're all combining for about 11 wins. You know, Spurs, Wizards, Pistons, with all their young players, they cannot get a win from anywhere. Although I do think that there is a dynamic in the NBA that is very similar to that dynamic in the NFL, where Bill Belichick would always get some votes for Coach of the Year, even in years where the Patriots were not odds-on favorite for the Super Bowl or anything. And that is, to me, that Eric Spoelstra, head coach of the Miami Heat, that's the best coach in the NBA. He is, I think, combo offensive coach, defensive coach, motivator. You can give that guy anybody. I mean, Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, remember when those guys were the two best players in the NBA? You've got Gabe Vincent not even playing for the Los Angeles Lakers, and they don't seem that fussed about it. Strus has given the Cavs good minutes, sure, whatever, but not an all-star player. Spoelstra is the best, man. Spoelstra is the best. And a lot of years I would have to be convinced to not vote for him or Popovich, I think.
Now, if we're taking a look here at the FanDuel Sportsbook and the odds market here to win it, it looks like it's a pretty clear race between three guys here. Daigneault at minus 190, the head coach of the Thunder. You take a look at Finch for the Timberwolves here. He's at a plus 360 price, and also at a plus 360 price is Mazzulla here for the Celtics. Now, is it just so simple for us to look at this? And let's just take the top two and we'll have that argument right now. Daigneault and Finch. Which team gets their team that number one overall seed? Would that decide it? Because quite frankly, right now, Daigneault is a heavier favorite over Finch here, despite what the standings tell us here in the Western Conference.
Well, you know what's so interesting about this is that you could argue that for Chris Finch winning this award, the Karl Anthony Towns injury helps him. That maybe even if the Timberwolves end up with the 2 seed, but they kind of hold it all together, Finch comes up with some. He's like, oh, on defense, actually, we're gonna have Kyle Anderson be the guy who sits under the center circle, because Kyle Anderson is so good at, he's got those quick hands despite having those slow feet. They call Kyle Anderson slow-mo for a reason. And we're actually going to have Rudy Gobert be the roamer. We're going to put Rudy Gobert on the move, and maybe it works in this brilliant way. I don't know. I'm completely making things up because I'm not Chris Finch, and I don't have the answer to this situation. You could definitely see that being possible, but probably actually the Karl Anthony Towns injury just means that the Thunder have a pretty good chance, 45% chance now of getting the 1 seed. And if you coach the second youngest team in the NBA to the 1 seed, it just feels like you got to get that award. And by the way, I mean, it's not really as simple as saying oh, the Thunder just have all these great players, so all Daigneault does is roll the ball out there, and they end up having a ton of success. That is not how it works. Other coaches and teams are super complimentary, particularly of the Thunder's defense, where I believe it was Brandon Ingram at All-Star break was talking about playing against the Thunder, and he was like, we don't really know what they're doing. Like we got into our offensive sets and they would throw something at us in a regular season game that we just didn't understand, which again is kind of a weird thing because Donnie, you know this, long season, 82 games, like it's just a fact. No one brings it every single night in the NBA. You couldn't bring it every single night in the NBA. You would break down. You'd give away too many tricks out of your playbook, particularly defensively. So I think, obviously I'm a little bit of a homer here. The Thunder are the team that I root for, but I think it is pretty deserved for Daigneault to win this award.
If we take a look at the Boston Celtics, obviously having a great season, lost last night to the Denver Nuggets, but Mazzulla here at the FanDuel Sportsbook listed at a plus 360 price to win Coach of the Year. How can he win Coach of the Year? And again, is it just as simple as you see the Thunder and the Timberwolves just fade back, or is there no chance, is he really blocked out and the winner is probably going to come from the Western Conference Coach here?
How can Joe Mazzulla win this award? What would you even say he's done to win this award? The offense is not markedly different than what happened in really any of the years of the Double J's lineups. I guess you could say that integrating Porzingis and removing Smart would require, some emotional heft in the locker room because Smart was like the guy who took basketball the most seriously on that roster. So Mazzulla would have to impact that. And you also have to count against Mazzulla that he was awful in the postseason last year. Like he had no answer for any of the things that the Miami Heat were throwing at the Celtics. And probably, I think with a better coach, they probably actually end up winning that series against the Miami Heat and maybe giving the Nuggets a better series. I think no chance. And in fact, Mazzulla would not even be on this list for me. Like that team is so clearly about the roster. If I was an Eastern Conference voter, I think Bickerstaff for the Cavs is doing a much better job.
Exceeding expectations, certainly that's what the Thunder have done. If we take a look here under Daigneault, team win total entering into the season, how about 44.5? They sit right now 43-19. 2 more victories here is going to get that done. Conference championship odds entering into the season, 29-1. Now sitting at plus 650. Championship odds, 70-1 coming into the season. I've seen that drop to 18-1. Just give me a little bit of a preview here for the Thunder, because I know that's your team, that's your root for. But honestly, heading into the playoffs, is it a wait-and-see approach, or are we coming in as OKC really confident, like this regular season wasn't a fluke? We're here, and we think we can win this thing.
Man, I don't think they can beat Denver, I think is the issue. Like, the Oklahoma City Thunder are one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA, Donnie, because they are so small. They only really have one center on the roster that they play, Chet Holmgren. They actually did reacquire Mike Muscala. I believe, I can't remember if they called him up from the G League or where they got him, but he's really the only other big on the roster. This Gordon Hayward acquisition, it just didn't really work out how they thought it would. Like Gordon Hayward, I think, has scored like 17 total points as a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder since acquiring him. And you can win that way. It's not to say that you can't win basically playing 5 out all the time, but Shea and Chet, they would have to basically play the best basketball of their lives consecutive for 3 series to get there. And who on that roster, like the Nuggets just are not going to be scared of the Thunder because they're like, we got the big fella. No one can stop the big fella. And I think the Timberwolves actually would be a terrible matchup for Oklahoma City too if Karl Anthony Towns came back, because they're just so big. It's very hard to win really without a center.
Daigneault is the favorite here at the FanDuel Sportsbook to take down Coach of the Year. Not too far behind Nikola Jokic to be MVP. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander coming in at a plus 250 price. Down the stretch they come in the NBA. But we're going to get those dancing shoes on. Mike Wood's going to join us next. Mid-major action right here